On today's episode of the Slide Experience, I have someone that is now I can actually call a friend, and he is a great asset to our creative team. He is someone that I actually call on a lot, and he give me great advice, and I'm so excited to have him on the podcast once again. And he is a husband, a father, an entrepreneur, and now he can actually add author to the list. My friend, and I'm so excited, Mr. Kingsley, to the show. What's going on, my friend?
What's going on? I see you kind of paused on the last name, just Adamudia.
Adamudia. I know every time. And I'm like, I really don't want to butcher your last name ever. So I'm like, I'm just going to
Okay.
call you Kingsley. So,
Yeah, most Nigerians always come with nicknames. So a lot of times people in college were calling me KI. Now people just say King, but I was definitely one of them students when the teacher was reading the roll, I was like, yes, I'm here, King's Adamudia. They didn't want to butcher it either, but it's okay.
I know. I was like, I'm very familiar. I'm very particular about my name, and I
Uh-huh.
don't want anybody to mispronounce it. And I'm like, you know what? I practice it, and I'm like, I still don't want to mess it up. So I'm just gonna give him. I'm gonna give it grace, and I know you're gonna, correct me. So thank you for the correction on that.
Oh, no problem.
So we're here because you are basically adding this new journey, this new chapter, this new title
Right.
to who you are, and it's author. And so I just had to get you back on the show to make sure that we can, talk about the book.
Mhm.
And um the blueprint to achieving more, it begins with you. It begins with who you become, right? And
Right.
it's be you have.
We do have
And
that.
so I want to know, the first question I have is, before we dive into all of the context, um, what made you feel like you was ready to write a book?
I just felt some, to be honest, I just felt like something that the Holy Spirit was leading me on. It was something that I had wrote in my bucket list uh, maybe about 7, 8 years ago that I wanted to write books. But last year, the desire really came on strong to where I could actually finish what I want to start. And the reason why I wrote Be Do Have was really just I'm still on my journey, but it started to come like I'm becoming living something different than I was before.
Okay. Okay. So why the topic? Why be do have?
Um, I think when it comes to trying to have stuff, I, that's cool, but and they always talk about it. If you listen to anybody who is in the speaking arena or who writes self-help books, they always like it's what you become, what you become. I was like, it always used to go over my head. And when Jim Rohn was like, you know, it's it's what you become, and in his voice, I was like, well, okay. But when you kind of go through your life's journey, it really is what you become, because what you become allows you to attain what you can have. So that's why I started with that, because when I talk to people, I'm like, the journey is actually going to make you a person to actually be able to handle the blessings coming your way. So that's why I started with Be Do Have.
Okay. I was, it caught my attention when you like, you know what, this is the title of my book, and I was like, oh, okay. And then I started reading it, and I know from mentors that you hear the term a lot in our world anyway of coaching, and I know our mentor actually uses it a lot as well. And to know that you actually, you know what, I'm going to break this down for the reader. And so I know you actually started your first chapter with becoming more.
Right.
And so, it's still a biblical term as far as like be do have. When those that are actually, you read your Bible, you should actually know the term of be do have, because um it's not one of those things to where God said, be still and know that I am God. Most people think that's the first thing that he says. And actually, it's the be do have piece that is overlooked. And
Right.
I wanted to know, is that where what do you want your readers to come out of when they read this book? What do you want them to learn um, from reading your book?
Uh, to be okay with the transformation.
Okay.
So
Okay.
my journey started when my sister passed in 2016, 2 days before my birthday. And I tell anybody who meets me now that that's kind of where it's a real pivotal point where I actually started transforming. And it's funny that you bring up the Bible because when a year into her death, I can remember telling God, like, I'm just tired of grieving. I'm tired of trying to figure out why you allowed her to pass. And I was like, I'm just gonna give all understanding to you. And for the readers, I want them to understand that the transformation is actually what you're looking for. I I give context like if you win $1 million from the lottery, as opposed to if you earn $1 million, the person who loses the $1 million from the lottery probably won't get it back again, right?
Right.
But if you earn it and you lose it, what the process it took to earn it, that don't leave you. And if you look in the Bible, they always give farming metaphors, the seed, the seed, the seed. For
Mm-hmm.
the seed to go into the acorn tree, it has to become it. It has to cease. It has to transform itself. So the readers, when they read my book, the main message is learn to understand that what you become coincides with what you're going to have.
Okay. I actually look at it. I totally understand that too, and it was one too. It's like for me, it was the B piece was I do agree, but B was like when he says be fruitful, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that part to me was now you have to be still do the thing that's going to allow you to do. So now I'm going to actually stay in it and sow. I need to sow before I can then what reap, right? So and that was the form for me was like the doing because it's like okay, be fruitful and doing is the multiplication piece. So do and be fruitful and multiply. The
Right.
multiplication is that's the now you're going to reap. And you can correct
Right.
me if I'm wrong, but that was my understanding of it. So I was like, you know what? When you start to break things down and I'm reading your book and I'm like, you have a lot of good, good nuggets and gems in here. And I know that when I read this book, it was simple, it's a short read, and you just broke it down to where anyone can really understand the importance of you know the be do have concept.
Yeah, and that really was the goal. I wanted a simple read. I didn't want a book. I mean, you see the books I read now. I mean, it's beautiful have, but the books I'm reading now, of course, my future books will probably be a little bit more lengthy, but I wanted my first book to be something simple where if you wanted to read it over a weekend, you could, and you can get that simple message. Um, when you're talking about when I talk about being fruitful, right? Even being fruitful, it has to start with your mind becoming to be accepting that you're about to be fruitful, right?
Right.
And that's why I said be fruitful, be ready to multiply. Like if you're not becoming is a mindset thing. It's an internal thing. And another hope is that I hope people can actually understand that whatever you want physically will always manifest first internally.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I actually call it. I wrote it down. I was like, it's the mindset shift, right? It
Mm-hmm.
was like the wake up call. Like
Right.
it's all of that. Yeah, so because in for you, you actually said the wake up call was the birth of your daughter.
Yeah.
Um, so in 2018, and then from there things start to actually change for you. You start to see things a little bit differently,
Right.
and so I know you said too, the death of your sister. But I think going through life, trials and tribulations will happen to us. Will actually, change us in certain ways anyway. But
Right.
it's all about what we're going to do after the experience.
Yeah. I mean, it's great that you said it. I was listening to Pastor Keon Henderson out of Houston, and he was talking about the just and unjust and rain. And just to kind of shorten it up, he was talking about everybody's going to have rain. Okay. And I want you to picture in your mind if rain's coming, the first on one picture it's soil, on the other picture is concrete.
Mhm.
And if you're a believer in Christ, you're a believer in God, you're the soil. From soil can come so much flower, so many trees that the soil will bring stuff out of you to be fruitful. But if you're hard, if you're holding grudges, if you have something that you can't let go, the concrete, the rain just falling off on you and sliding off. Nothing's producing off of. And I think a lot of times when we're going through our transformation stage, if we don't have that God foundation piece, then a lot of the struggles that we go through, we just like, woe is me, woe is me. And that's why I told people my greatest gift was understanding that pain from my sister's death was actually used for me to get my mind right. And when my daughter came 2 years later and was born on the same date, uh, I was like, okay, God is doing something here that I can't understand, but I need to be mentally prepared and mentally be in a space where I can grow with him relationship wise, where I could be the father that she needs. Of course, I was already a father then, but that kind of when my daughter came, that kind of submitted like something's going on outside of me that I don't know what's gonna happen, but I just wanted to be the best father I could be, and I thought I could be the best father with me if I built my relationship with God in a way where my children, my wife, people could see like, okay, this God is standing on his principle.
I like it. I definitely like it. And I know that you have a chapter in your book that called is sacrifice.
Yeah.
So what sacrifices do you feel like you had to make even to get to that point?
I mean, like it's so many sacrifices. One thing I'm working on now is actually stop complaining. Um,
As a sacrifice?
it really is. And when you feel like you complain a lot, when you try to stop, you don't realize how much you are complaining. And
Okay.
complaining to me is on a level of ungratefulness because let's say I come home, my children toys are out on the floor and I'm just complaining about it. Well, I'm not even being grateful that they're here. And also, I'm not understanding that they're children, they're growing. Sacrifices in time for business. But really, when I was talking about sacrifice, I was talking about sacrifices in carnal nature. I had a really bad addiction with, watching pornography and watching certain things. And one, that was a sacrifice because I was like, I got to get my mind. I have to be in a space where I could actually say, like, you know what, this is not right for me.
Yeah.
And when you start sacrificing things that of a carnal nature, you really start removing yourself automatically to wanting more and more of that. So what I did was I sacrificed time of watching like even watching regular TV. Instead of that, I read the Bible. I try to read the Bible for understanding. Now, I'm giving more of my time to God and making sure that, hey, instead of me just watching willy nilly, which yeah, I still watch a little bit TV, but I say, you know what? I'm not just going to go to church on Sunday, give him 2 hours, and that be it. I'm actually going to sacrifice what I feel like I want to do and give him what he needs from me.
Yeah.
Um, so that's what sacrifice. But with anything, if you're not willing to sacrifice, you don't really want
Yeah. I like your quote. You said sacrifice is letting go of something lower to gain something higher.
it.
And then you also stated that the embrace the idea that the new you requires a new level of commitment. I was like, yes, he understands it. I was like, I literally
Yeah,
like that one. Because for you to become the new you, you have to it's like one step at a time. So you can't keep looking down the stairs if you're trying to get forward. And so you take that one step at a time so you can actually become the thing and do the thing. So and then too, like you said, the mind shifts has to happen and sacrifices have to be made. And I like what you said about the television watching, because as an entrepreneur and people want to be entrepreneurs, and you want, going into 2024, we want to change ourselves, we
right,
want to change our bodies, we want, something new, but their sacrifices are real, so you have to be willing to do the things that you've never done.
right.
And that means turn off the television. That means, if you want to say, hey, I want to read my Bible more, like you say, get to know God more, you have to change. You can't have that same mentality going into the new thing
Yeah. And
because you're going to get the same result.
right. It was difficult it's difficult to sacrifice. You know, when it comes to sacrifice, you're not like every level, when I wrote every level requires new sacrifice, that was one of the hardest parts for me to grasp because when you reach some little success, you think that that same person, that same version of you is going to be required for the next level, and it's so not there. Like as you trying to scale the business or you're trying to open, like let's say you have a franchise owner. I mean, you're a business owner, you want to do franchise. It's going to require a different version of you, and the same sacrifice you gave for that other level is probably gonna be it's probably gonna be totally null and void when you try to go to a new level. And that was one of the difficult parts for me to understand. It's like for me to try to reach what I'm trying to reach, it's difficult learning that I got to sacrifice more.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I just gave a lot of myself for this. I got to give more. It's like, man, it's difficult, and it's hard to it's a hard concept to actually go through while you're going through it because sometimes you're just like, man, how long? How long I'm gonna have to keep giving? How I'm keep giving until I can reach my fruit? But the one thing that kind of settles me is that in due season, due time, he talks about things will come in due time, and it's like, okay, if it don't come now, it's coming. I may not be the person ready to handle what I want or what he wants for me.
Right. And that goes to the saying of all work works. I think you actually have a chapter that about that too. Is like all work is I think is it all work works, but then I think all work is working.
Either
I think
works
so.
for you or on you.
There you go. That's that part. And so I think it's the that when we don't see that immediate result or the immediate thing, we feel like it's not working. It is. It's just working on you before it actually shows up to the world.
Mhm.
And so when it actually shows up to the world, that means now you're ready to respond in a way that shows that you have growth, that you actually learn from the process. And
Mhm.
so if you're not ready for what's to come, it's
Yeah.
going to show up some way, form, or fashion. So sometimes you have to trust the process and understand that, for example, if you're a sales guy and you've never sold anything and you're
Mhm.
still there's something that you know that in you that you want to do this thing and you haven't said had it gotten a yes out of your sales, or you're not accomplishing your goals, but you keep showing up every single day trying new techniques and trying new things, eventually you will get the yes. But
Right.
what you're going to come out of that knowing is that how you've gotten all the no's, so
Mhm.
now you know how to get the yeses. So
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. And you know, I just feel like society doesn't set us up to view that. Like if I post something on Instagram, it could be something very silly and get 1 million likes. I'm just using an example. That is actually more of a detriment to us because it's showing us that we don't have to do it. We don't have to really give value to actually get attention. We don't actually have to put in work to actually reap what we're supposed to reap. And when I learned that from Myron Golden, all works either going to work for you or work on you.
Yeah.
And as like when he said that, it really just sunk in my spirit. It's like, yeah, because I was like, man, everything I've done has actually been a stepping stone to what I'm doing now. And I thought about David in the Bible where when he killed the lion, nobody was clapping for him. He did that by himself. He killed it. Nobody was there. Hey, good job. When he killed the bear, nobody was clapping. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, when he killed Goliath, Saul kills 1,000. David kills 10,000. People started clapping, but before he could even get to that moment, he had to go ahead and handle business before, so he knew what was ready. He knew that, okay, Saul, this armor ain't gonna work for me. I'm gonna have to use my slingshot while using my line on that bear. I know what to do. Okay, you're gone. So nobody that's one. I mean, I just try to be honest. That's one of the roughest part of being an entrepreneur. Why I always kind of felt alone because I'm like, man, if I would share something with family members or close friends, it's like, yeah, whatever. I just want to go to my job. I'm like, man, this can help you. But when you actually doing the bulk of your work out the spotlight, nobody's gonna be there clapping for you. Nobody. It may be a few people, but for the majority of the part, just like the glacier, 99% of the things that's being done is underneath water. Nobody's there. So by the time you in the public, people can always tell the amateur from the professional.
Mhm.
If I'm going to go play golf, they go understand, hey, I haven't been playing golf for too long.
But that's what I mean. But that's why they have that thing is that the what is it? The oh god, identity syndrome. No, what is it?
Imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome. Yes. But I'm glad you said the whole thing about the isolation and then because you also write about isolation leads to a transformation.
Mm-hmm.
And so our family and friends don't ever understand,
Right.
because I've said it before, what God gave to you, he gave it to you so you can actually understand it. Now it's up to you to make it work.
Right.
And no one else is going to see your vision until you allow them to see it when it comes through, when it's ready. The product has to be ready. They have to see you put in the work.
Right.
And because people talk about what they're doing all the time and what they want to do all the time, and so they see you as little Kingsley. They see you as the
Right.
Kingsley you want to be. You made the transformation from. They don't
Right.
see who you're trying to become. And so it takes a while for family and friends to actually say, "Oh, okay, now I see you." But you've
Mm-hmm.
already done all of the work. And that isolation, and this is what you stated here. I leaped into entrepreneurship. The leap into entrepreneurship was a dive into the abyss. And then you actually ask yourself, can I really do this? So you have to believe it first.
Right.
Right, so the isolation, let's talk about that because I really enjoyed this chapter. I felt like it was really speaking to me because I like quiet, I like time by myself. Is the time that I spend so I can actually speak to God and I can hear him and I can make sure that before I make a move,
Right.
because I have 100 things in my head sometimes, and I have to make sure I be still enough so I can say, you know what, God, this is what I feel like I want to do, but is it of you? Is this what you want me to do? So
Right.
let's talk about the isolation piece and what you want people to get out of that chapter.
Uh, be okay with your season of isolation.
Yeah.
Be okay with most of your work is being done in the dark. That was really what I wanted to get with that chapter. I was uncomfortable being alone like that. It was some times where when you're struggling to when you have the vision before the vision's here, you're trapped in a time warp where you kind of have you have a little bit of clarity of what you want your end to be, but the gap before then, it's a less road, it's a road less traveled, and when you are looking like a fool and saying, I got this in my mind, I know it's gonna work, but it's not working just yet how it should be, it's lonely. If there's no other way, and you got to get comfortable of saying, if I'm going to commit to the process, then I'm going to commit how the process is going to work on me. So that book, I mean, that chapter is really just being comfortable of doing the work in the dark before the praise comes. Because you're gonna have more people being critical and saying why you doing this before the praise actually comes. They only
Yeah.
praise you when you've been beat up by life and you got it, and then you're like, man, this is all it is.
So in your isolation time though, what did you when you came out of it, what did you learn? Because I see here you also have a it was difficult and you said my internal demons were laid bare. I was like, wow. Like, and you said it was difficult for you, and I figured that was a thing to where when you go into isolation, regardless if it was it for entrepreneur journey, or was it because of the things that you were going through personally with all, losing your loved one? Everything shifts, right? So tell me
Yeah.
more about
When I say isolation, I really felt I'm really talking about how I felt inside.
that. Hmm.
You know, when you're in entrepreneurship, you're not really around a lot of people like you're going to a job. You constantly can see somebody talking, y'all can go on lunch breaks. You're constantly working in the business or working on the business. And in the beginning, it's so new to you that it's like, who can you talk to? Because the majority of people around you are not entrepreneurs. Even if you're part of a mastermind or you're part of a business group, the majority of people who are close to you, when I'm talking about family and friends, when you decide to go, most of them not going to be doing what you're doing. So I really felt isolated in like, just like, man, as I'm struggling to try to figure this out, who can I talk to who can understand? But what I learned was in the dark, when I was isolated, it was actually working on me. I was actually getting better, but it's just like, when I was in shape and then I got out of shape, when I started having my children, now I'm back in shape. I'm in my ugly stage. If any black person know, if you growing your braids out, especially for guys, there's an ugly stage that you gotta have before you hit that hang time. People are like, boy, you need to cut that off. You're gonna go ahead and get your taper. That hang time ain't coming. So in the entrepreneurship is an ugly stage, right? And you just feel isolated. So I just learned how to be comfortable with my growth. I had to learn that I'm isolated not because it's like, oh, woe is me. I'm isolated because the work that needs to be done really when nobody's looking. When I started learning my YouTube and cutting, editing videos, I'm glad that a lot of people not really on me because I'm learning. And a lot of times when you have all the spotlight, you know, it's difficult to fail when all them eyeballs on you. But if you're failing like one or two people, that's actually a good time to start failing. Okay, that person didn't like that. I'm gonna tweak here, tweak there. So, that chapter of isolation was just about, understanding that you're isolated because it's the time of growth. And the
Yeah.
majority of growth is gonna happen when you're isolated. And just to be okay with that. There's nothing wrong with that. Because the time
Yeah.
where the spotlight's on you, you may not have a lot of isolation time. You may not have time to just be constantly in that grind mode. Now you're over there doing podcasts. Now you're over here doing speaking engagements. People, the eye on you. You may not have as much time to kind of learn the little mistakes that you need to learn.
Yeah, sometimes you learn on the way. You learn
Yeah.
as you go, and some you will make the mistakes, and some of us will fall forward, but we got to get up. And like you say with the KFC things you have it in the dark, what's done in the dark. Let me find the chapter. I want to make sure I'm doing you justice. Hold on a second. Yeah, done in the dark. Done in the dark.
Yeah.
um, so that goes back to that, and we want to press through our nose. We want to press through all of the trials and tribulations, because if something is in you, that God gave you that gift, that
Yeah,
talent,
for
and
sure.
the whispers won't go away. And all you want to do is become as strong enough of a person to see it through, because you know what you know, and you won't give it up. And so it's up to you to keep going, because if you quit, you're the same person. I was like, oh, I'm not going to do hair. I'm not going to start this hair salon. Oh, now I want to do real estate. And oh, I'm
Mm.
going to start this real estate business. And so the same you that wanted to do the hair journey is the same you that was going to do the real estate things, but you haven't done anything to become stronger, to become the thing. So you're still the same person going into the new thing. And all you're going to do is quit it as well, because you're not learning anything. You're not changing who you are.
Well, for your audience, I mean, I'm so glad you said that. Whatever test you don't pass will come back again.
Right.
Whatever test you don't pass will always come back again until you pass it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that means when God said, "Okay, well, you didn't learn that lesson the first time, so we got to go back and do this
Go
again."
back again. Back again.
So okay, you gonna make this journey a little bit longer than we
Hmm.
wanted to because you didn't learn it. So I definitely understand that. So when you say, so how hard was it for you to actually sit down and write this book? Like, somebody maybe wanted to say, I really want to write a book, and everything in your head, I need to get it out. For you, how challenging was it for you, if
I
at
first
all? Did you find it challenging at all?
This one in the beginning, yes. Uh, so once I decided to say, you know what, once I do the outline, I'm gonna do the outline, do the title, and I'm gonna go from there. And I just committed an hour a day or a page a day. I'm just gonna keep writing. So like even my book now, my second book I'm working on, I'm gonna revise the title and revise some of that outline. But I already said, okay, 30 pages a month. Now, if I once I commit to that's like, okay, a page a day. So it got easier as I kept writing. And then I got to a point where, okay, it's done. And then, when you send it to the editor and stuff like that, it make you revise. But if you can just commit to doing something a day, a sentence a day, a paragraph a day, then the journey becomes easier. And I think people should look at their time frame. What are they willing to give up? I had to, that's what came with me cutting off TV a little bit more, right? So the time I want to watch TV, I said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and start writing this page. Or I got free time, I'm going to write this page. So I just found the time to write. And I didn't really get stuck in perfect. I do that sometimes, overanalyzing. I was like, nah, I'm just gonna keep writing. It is what it is. If and I've always kind of been like that. I'm like, even if the first one, or whatever I do, ain't a hit, sooner or later it's about to hit. So I'm like, first book, second book. I remember talking about my second book. Like this wasn't a one book thing. I'm like, I'm gonna be keep doing books because I understand whatever doesn't work for you will work on you. Because I'll keep going, I'm gonna have to get better. That's the only way. That's the only law I know. Yeah, I keep doing it, keep having intention on it. I'm gonna get better. So for your audience, because it's funny that when you become an author, people see you release a book. Man, I've been thinking about writing a book. They get confident. So a lot of people, and everybody is an author. We all learn by stories. I think the biggest thing is just tell your story. Tell tell what's in your heart from your experience. That's all I do. I tell what I've been through. Everything I've been through, I just spill it out. And don't try to be nobody you're not. And just commit. Say, I just want to do a sentence a day. And then you're naturally going to build upon that. So writing a
Yeah,
book, it starts with commitment, really. Just commit. Take
yeah.
put the book on, and then in your schedule, take something off.
So you said, did you actually? How many times did you have to change your title?
I I I always knew I wanted to be do have. Well, no, let me now I'm lying. I want to do becoming first. And then my wife was like, "Oh, don't Michelle Obama got one called Becoming?" Like, yeah, but Kings Out of the Moody finna have Becoming too. We gonna have two Becoming books. I'm like, you can have another Becoming book, and then going to Myron Golden's conference when he explained Voodoo Have, I said, yeah, that's it, be do have. Before I can have, I must do. But before do and have, I must become. I said, that's the title, be do have. And I said, that's the story about becoming. So
Okay.
yeah, so I got lucky, they were giving the Obamas saying now the Obamas becoming. I like, dang.
They're just well known. That's all. You don't
I
have that
know.
platform.
I know. Me and Michelle could be on stage like, hey, I'm becoming too. We're gonna talk about both our books.
I wanted to deep dive into the other chapter too that spoke to me was the new level, new devils, and I love you. Your analogies in this book are great, by the way. I mean, from Superman to Simba to MJ,
Yeah.
you did really well telling the story and trying to make sure that people actually understood what you were saying so they could actually
Yeah.
follow. Um, so I even say that if you like analogies, get his book because he breaks it down. But you also reference again back to the Bible and the renaming of certain individuals and
Yeah.
Abram and Abraham and Jacob and Israel. So
Israel.
you actually broke that down and you were basically stated that these name changes were symbolic in a deeper transformation and a higher calling, shedding the past identities and embracing the new. And tell me more, because I'm like, I know what I got from that. And I'm like, I got chills. I was like, oh my, this is why he's my friend, because you're like in my head and I think the same. So let's talk about that a little bit deeper.
Um, well, let me start off in college, I had a little party name. Before somebody really builds a relationship with God, it's probably a side that there's always a wild side that nobody knows. And my side in college, my nickname was K, but my party name was Doobie. It was a
Was
name
what party name was
it,
what?
it was Doobie. So in Dallas, my cousin used to say, he used to tie his do-rag, oh, I got the gray Doobie on my head. I said, man, that's a good nickname. So he's like, call me Doobie.
Okay.
And it's funny now, I was doing a webinar on how to real estate invest last week, and I was joking with some of the girls, some of the AKs that know me, and I was like we can't call you Dubin. I was like, no, I don't go by that name. You got to call me Kingsley. I don't mind King or Ki, but you got to call me Kingsley because the level I'm on now, Doobie don't serve me. Who Doobie was, some of the stuff is still in me. Like I can have fun, I can joke, but that core person at that stage don't serve me. So when I said new level, new devil, there's always going to be something that you have to struggle with each version of yourself. And I always like to bring it to entrepreneurship because that's one of the purest forms of creativity. You got to use your imagination. Now, in our culture, I'm my both our parents are from Nigeria, and we just like the Jamaicans, we'll have like nine things going on, but a lot of it's self-employment. And 4 or 5 years ago, I realized self-employment is not going to serve me. So I'm on this new journey of trying to scale and actually be a business owner where if I'm not doing my business, I'm still making money. Well, the self-employed Kingsley who made six figures, that ain't working no more. you know, Having systems and procedures, learning how to delegate, learning that I can't do everything, that is foreign. And for me, that's my devil right now that I'm tackling. Like, how do I go from this to that? So when I wrote that chapter, I was like, hey, each time you go up, there's always going to be something you have to tackle. And like I always like I just always like using David in my analogies because it's like he always had to tackle something like you beat the lion, not think you got to fight the bear. You beat the bear, not thinking you got to um, beat Goliath. But before even Goliath, David was actually working on himself. When he went to the battlefield, his older brother was like, hey, what are you doing here? Give me my food and go home. You're the youngest one. You don't got nothing to do over here.
Right.
If David didn't learn a time and what it means to be a time and place when he should be speaking, or understand that some battles ain't meant for him, if he had spent time arguing his case, trying to prove to his brother, he would never fought Goliath. He dismissed his brother, beat Goliath, and then, okay, I beat Goliath, what's next? Well, then what's next is the new devil was Saul. Saul
Right.
had to remember, Saul got jealous. So while
Mhm.
he's like, I'm just want to beat Goliath, hey, you go pay these taxes for my house. We don't got to pay no taxes. Okay, we cool. He was like, okay, I'm good. He didn't think like, dude, why are you jealous? I'm not even doing nothing. And David understood that Saul was still anointed by God. He's like, I can't kill you.
Right.
So during that season, he had to learn more patience.
Mhm.
Like each level you graduate from is something new that it's like it builds upon what you did. And it's like you can't even, they had this saying, don't rest on your morals. You can't even rest on what you've done because if you're still achieving, if you're still going, then it's gonna be situations where, yeah, that's cool, you beat the line, but I don't help you with the bear. It helps you in principle that you can defeat something like that, but it's a whole different ball game beating something different, you know?
Yeah.
So that's what I
Yeah.
mean by new level, new devil. It's just like you can't really settle. You got to keep going. Like you got to understand something new's coming your way, and you got to defeat that again. Something new,
Yeah.
you got to defeat that again.
I looked at it two different ways. I took it as the rebirth of something. So it was like you say transformation, and the higher and higher is calling.
Right.
So when David actually did had the defeat, he didn't, honestly, I don't, he second guessed it, but then he was like, you know what, why? I'm gonna go in and do this thing anyway. So he knew what he had in him, because
Right.
most of us, like, you can't bring a knife to a gun show. What, you gonna get laughed at. So I think for many of us, we're so accustomed to wanting to hold on to the old us,
Right.
and God is saying, "No, you gotta let that go." Like you said, you don't call me this. You can call me king, but I'm no longer that person. I'm no longer that. I
Right.
am someone else. I am the same person, but my transformation into this, dad, the entrepreneur, the
Mhm.
boss, right? A God fearing man, you're like, hey, I'm identifying with what I need to be right now. And that's basically, strengthening in our faith as well, right?
Right.
I think you have that too. It's more so allowing us to shed the old into the new and become
Mhm.
stronger in faith,
That
right?
faith's a big
So,
thing, man. Yeah, just man, it's like I said, it's a journey, man. Look, the journey of becoming is so deep. It's like it's like once you in it, and
mhm,
once you start looking back, things that you used to do and things that like you need to start doing. Like I had to learn, like, I couldn't even like I learned how to pop off from my mom. My dad can be real mellow in public, especially, and even in a house. He never really raised his voice. But my mom, whew, that's the lioness. She 5'4" and all a bit of feisty. And it's like I learned how to, like, if you like, I'm cool, but if you do something, I'll learn, like, hey, I will strain you out. But I had to learn that, if the Bible says slow to anger, slow to speak, and quick to hear, I had to learn that that ain't supposed to be doing that.
hmm,
I had to. So it's like when you learn, the great thing about challenges and becoming is it reveals your weaknesses. It reveals where you're struggling. And that's why you should embrace becoming, because you need to understand who you are. You need
hmm.
to understand what makes you tick, what makes you go. How can you become if you're unaware of your blind spots? If you're driving a little compact car and you can't see that 18 wheel and you're trying to get off, boom, it's a crash. So,
Yeah.
become it's a lifelong thing. You never really stop becoming. You're always evolving, adapting to something more.
So with that said, because I know it's like everybody has a level of success. Everyone feels like, success is, is, oh, you have arrived because of this thing. So I tell a story, and I had someone come to my home,
Mhm.
and they went into my office, and they were like, "Oh my God, you really doing this? I mean, you got all of these plaques and all of these degrees. You've been to all of these places and all these, it's like, oh wow, you really, you arrived." And I'm thinking, I'm just getting started. I was like, and I didn't, and I had that epiphany at that very moment. To someone else, I'm doing very, very well. And for me, I'm like, I haven't done enough, and there's so much more to me that I want to accomplish. And so I had to say, okay, for somebody else as looking on the outside in, you're doing it. But So when someone else says, "Oh, they give you the praise on your accomplishments or doing things," I have to really sit back and say, "Okay, well, thank you," and because I would go into this whole tangent like, "No, I haven't," but because for me, I've always tried to, once I accomplish something, okay, I'm on to the next thing,
Right.
and I know what my level of success looks like for me. And God may say, you know what, I don't need you standing here. I need you to do something else. And so I'm always thinking of that next thing and how can I change another life? How can I help somebody else? Or, because me helping someone else helps me get to a new level, or me doing the thing. So, um, as you stated, in deep roots, when
Mhm.
you say, you know what, mama is a serious mama bear. She is the one
Right.
that she's gonna pop off and say, you're not gonna do it this way. This is
Yeah.
how we gonna do it around my house, in my household. And so for you, you've embodied that.
Right.
That's who you are, because you like, I'm a strong man. My mama's strong, be a strong man. and it goes back to your roots, being Nigerian, and they are proud people and
Right.
saying, hey, I have to do multiple things, because not only am I going to do this, I'm going to bring everybody with me, because if I eat, everybody eats. And you speak of your dad in your book and how he um made sacrifices, and he had to make sure that he did everything for himself to make sure that you guys had a better life. And so I look at that when you talk about the bamboo and how you don't realize what's going on inside or deep down in the root until years later, how strong a bamboo really is because
Right.
of what they had to endure in hiding, in the
Right.
dark,
In the
right?
dog.
And so let's talk about that a little bit.
Oh, the bamboo of my dad.
Either one, both.
So, my dad and my mom. I mean, when I got old enough to this thing, being Nigerian really wasn't cool. Um, when I was in school, it taught me how to kind of get a quick trigger on my tongue because people used to talk about my head. He'd be like, man, one guy, he made a funny joke, and I still tell the joke to today. My hair was so nappy that, the little Malcolm X pictures.
Yeah.
He said my whole head like I had a little fist all over my head. I said, oh, this
Uh,
what we doing? I said, oh, this what we doing today? Okay, okay. I said, whoa, okay. I didn't really understand this level of violence, but I'm gonna choose on violence too. So, but when I got older, I felt really proud to be part of a legacy that I could actually see that, my parents came from a village. I've seen the toothbrush they had like a little stick toothbrush. They didn't come from nothing. So to come from nothing, to come to America with nothing, and my parents don't have to work. The house is paid off. They're working to stay busy. I was like, man, I always told myself they were the foundation. If they didn't come like Abraham to a foreign land, I would have never be able to enter to milk and honey in the promised land. I would never be able to experience this. So I was so grateful. And I told my dad, man, thank you. Because like if he didn't come over, I don't know, where I would be. America is a country where I love it because you can actually come with nothing and be something. And um just being grateful to actually be able to build on what they started. And with the bamboo tree, it kind of I wanted to kind of bring into perspective of whatever you're working on, it's you finna start reaping. Um, One of my first successful businesses was back in '06, and I had it with somebody. And we had a disagreement, and out of my anger, I closed the business down. And I had a situation where I had a wake up call. My credit score was around 400, and things just got real terrible. I went to debt collecting, and I was a debt collector, and then I was like, my wife was like, if you want to have kids, we got to have a house. So I was like, okay, let me get to teaching. Um, and everything I learned how to be a debt collector, everything I learned how to be a teacher helped me to actually be self-employed when I later quit teaching. The debt collecting helped me how to deal with people when they're going through emotions, whether they're either buying, selling, or especially I'm doing with investing. You know, when people are losing a home doing foreclosure or taxes, they in an emotional state. So being cussed out, saying, hey, sir, how you doing? I need you to pay this bill. Hey, why the F you calling me? And for me to be able to tone that person down and they want me to invite me to their house and still pay the bill, that helped me really start investing. Teaching, giving back to lower income neighborhoods, you know, that helped me to be more patient as I'm teaching people how to real estate invest now. So all them years helped me to where I can get to a point where now I can start flourishing a little bit. So with the bamboo, I like the bamboo because the bamboo, it 4 to 5 years, you see no growth. And all of a sudden, boom, it shoots up. It's like all that time, like if anybody who's made gumbo, cook gumbo, all that time it was stirring, all that seasoning getting in there, started salivating. By the time you ate, it's like, oh, okay, this is why we had to let it slow cook. This is why we had to put that seasoning and stuff like that. So I guess that's another analogy.
I, yeah, I thank you for sharing that. I know, the bamboo you said it teaches you patience, resilience,
Oh
and
yeah.
faith. And I know that from, reading about your dad and what you're just saying now, that's who I see in you. It's like you're very resilient. You actually connected the dots very well. It's like, okay, um, like I think the friendship thing is like, okay, well, we're gonna go in friend. Everything was good in the beginning, and you said you had, y'all made money, y'all did great, but then you had a disagreement, you fell out, and then everything just crumbles. And
Mm-hmm.
so now, okay, what do? So now you eventually you got to go back. You can find a job. So, and okay, you went and found the job, and now you like you said, you went through these stages, but the person that I've met, the person that I know you are today, the teacher, the leader in you, has identified each one of those stages that's going to allow other people to see you in a totally different light by
Right.
reading your book, being an author, and to hear that you are so connected with the universe in that way. Because it's like, okay, yeah, I was a teacher, but now I'm doing this. I'm a real estate business owner, and I'm teaching other people how to, invest. I'm teaching other people how to write a book. I'm teaching other people how to build wealth. You actually have taken everything that was,
Mm-hmm.
and now you being and becoming the person that God wants you to be,
Right.
so that you can have dominion, so that you can have, the abundance of wealth, because of the connection that you have, and you have identified that. And I commend you for that. This is really, really good. I
Thank
think I
you.
I I mean, you're really smart, and I'm very pleased. I'm happy that I met you in the
I
airport.
know. by It
And
wasn't by accident, but we thought it was accident. Like, man, this was a coincidence.
yeah, I mean, all like I said, you talk about that. What success means, what success really means. Everybody's success level and their definition is different,
It's different.
and for somebody on the outside, you have a very successful career, but what you're stating is, I'm just getting started.
It's getting
For
started.
me, I have done things. I've all of these accolades and all of these degrees, but for me, I'm just really getting started, because now
Yeah.
I'm identifying a whole new me. So my success level is not the same as someone else that's looking at it from the bottom up.
Yeah. I mean, when you I mean, when the world considers you, when you consider yourself kind of a high achiever, or just say you never really just settle. You're like, okay, I got this. Okay, I'm cool, and go again. And it's like when people look out at you, like, oh man, you got everything. But if you're a person who's steady trying to go, let's just take the high achiever out. If you're always in the mode of growing, you're just never settling.
Hmm.
You're never settling because you understand that growing is a journey,
Yeah.
and you don't stop growing till you're dead. Like
Yeah.
when the purpose is being completed, it's time to go. So, yeah, I know how it goes. People look at it like, oh man, you successful. It's like, I feel like if you feel like you're successful, then like you probably not gonna keep being successful because like, oh, I can breathe. It's like you always kind of going. It's not to say you don't celebrate small wins, but which I've had to learn to do. Say but small wins. But if I feel like, oh, I can excel, am I still really in my purpose? I need to find everything needs to be connected to a purpose. And then, if you're done with this purpose, you need to find another one to have some time of meaningfulness in your life.
Yeah, I agree with that. And to add to it, it's like what when you arrive, as I say, like, oh yeah, I've arrived. I'm true to me. I'm like I get bored easy. I don't like getting complacent. I don't like too much of the same routine. I'm okay with change depending on what it is.
Mm,
And so when you say, oh, you want to start a business and you want to be a business owner, an entrepreneur, sometimes you want to do multiple businesses. You want to do you moving in all types of different directions. And so it makes you feel good and feel whole when you actually accomplishing certain things and multitasking and all those things. But I so what do you want your readers or the listeners to know about Be Do Have um in that journey of while they're reading it? What I mean, as they're reading it, I know I asked you what do you want them to learn, but when they actually pick up this book again, it didn't take me that long to read this, by the way,
right, right.
and I think I read it in actually one day. So when I
Yeah.
say
I would
you
say
can
like in
read
one
it,
day.
I read it
One
in
day
one
book.
day, and then I went back to read it because I highlight and I take notes, and I'm like, okay, he made very valid points. I know for me, again, if you like short reads, right to the straight to the point, biblical terms, he gives you all of that in his book. And again, it's like, the blueprint is like the
Mhm.
beginning, and he's given it to you in this book. So I recommend that you read it. But my question to you is, what do you have to say?
So what I want them to have from this book is, okay, the first thing is that your gifts ain't meant for you. It's meant for somebody else, multiple people. And for you to give a gift, technically you need to be in surplus. For you to be in surplus, you must build into surplus. So I want them to have to in this book, I want them to have the mindset that they're building towards surplus. So the surplus can give to the people that God needs you to give to. I need you to build towards that surplus so that seed that's in you can multiply into that tree that's going to have all these fruits that somebody can pick off of. So just have that journey mindset in you, have that process, be that gumbo pot. Understand that you're boiling, you're cooking, and by the time you're done with your gift, there's going to be so many people who can eat off you that they can share it with somebody else. But just be okay with becoming. I know that was probably multiple things. That's probably like three or four things.
Be okay with becoming
Be
who you
okay with
are.
becoming. Be okay with becoming who you are, who you really meant to be. I always I love the Bible because even if you don't believe the Bible, if you look at it, everybody had an issue. There was nobody perfect in the Bible. They all had their struggles and had to become. But the one thing, especially for believers, okay, God wants you to have abundance. He wants you to. But how can God bless you with the abundance that you're supposed to have if you not become the person who can handle it?
Right.
They put gold in chapter 2 of Genesis. And once people just if people ask themselves, why would God put gold in the Bible early in Genesis when Adam and Eve were butt naked running around? There was no HEB, everything they could eat off of fruit, right? Eat off the tree. They even had to go shopping in them tight aisles. Oh yeah, I'm hungry. Boom, boom, boom. he always created a solution before you were aware that you had a need. And that desire that's in you is making you aware of the need that people are going to need, that people, he's making you aware of a need for a solution he already has for you. That's all
Right.
he's done. He's already had the solution. If he's promised you this, it doesn't become void. It will happen, but you need to be first, like you said, have a desire, and then it's like, okay, there's a need for this, and then boom, I'm going to become boom, 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 so that solution can be there. So, just I really hope that people just read this and try to gain understanding and just be comfortable with becoming. Just be comfortable with becoming. Be comfortable of becoming the best version of you every day. And I feel that if people can take that nugget from this book, this is the foundation for them. That's why in the book he's starting. He's at the beginning. He's at the beginning. So, I'm very grateful that you had me on this podcast, and I'm grateful that I got to share about this book. It was something that I didn't even know that a lot of people want to write. So if I didn't even have a desire to do this, then I probably wouldn't give hope for somebody who can become the greatest writer we know now. This could be the inspiration for somebody to be a best-selling author. Me taking that step right there.
I agree. I think what, yeah, Be Do Have is a great beginning. It's a great tool, a resource, a blueprint. Making sure that if you don't know who you are, this is a good way to start. And
Right.
don't be afraid to be the person or the thing that you have in your heart to become, so that you can have dominion, so that you can have prosperity, wealth, and clarity. And because God created us to create. He is the great I am for a reason. And don't be afraid to be who you are. Your family and friends will not understand it in the beginning, but you
Right.
have to persevere and do it anyway. So again, I can call you King, Kingsley, KI.
That's
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for accepting my invitation and coming back on. And I'm sure this is, again, I knew that I said it when I met you. You had you on when we were talking about being an entrepreneur in real estate. It was
right.
another project. People see he's still doing it,
Still
and
doing it.
so I look forward to the next thing. So again, thank you for saying yes. This has been another great episode of the Slight Ed Experience podcast. I am your host, Latasha, and your girl is out. Have a great day.
All right.